Welcome to my third instalment of Animal Crossing Trivia, where today I'm just focusing on a collection of random and obscure facts from across the entirety of the series. So, enjoy! And, if you find out something you didn't know previously, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Let's jump into it, shall we? Animal Crossing Population Growing was released in North America on September 16th, 2002, and the game didn't see a European release until 2 years later, eventually being released on September 24th, 2004. A number of changes were made for the Euro version, French, German, Italian and Spanish languages being supported, and the e-reader functionality being removed entirely as the e-reader was never released in Europe. Seems like obvious choices. However, the strangest choice, in my opinion at least, was during the start screen. Press start is displayed, the font has been changed and the letter P has gone from a capital to lowercase. Was this really necessary? I just find it so bizarre they actually put time and effort into that of all things. Freckles' Japanese name is Maguro, which means tuna, and consequently she has a general fish theme. This includes her owning tuna in her home in New Leaf and New Horizons, her star sign being Pisces, which is symbolised by a fish, her hobby in Wild World being fishing, and the cutest detail is the chimney of our homes in New Leaf and Happy Home Designer produces a smoke plume in the shape of a fish. Such a subtle but cool detail to add. Dr. Shrunk's favourite food is chocolate cake. That's it, that's the fact. But hey, who can blame him, right? There is a furniture item in New Leaf added into the game via the Welcome Amiibo update that looks like a retail shelf full of 3DS games. The Nintendo 3DS shelf was somewhat difficult to obtain as no villagers had this item in their home, as well as no special characters having it available in their RVs. The only way to get your hands on it was making a 10-chain combo in the Animal Crossing Puzzle League minigame, the Puyo Puyo-esque game that was actually a lot of fun. The item shows 6 different 3DS games using their Japanese box art, and these games are The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, Style Savvy Fashion Forward, Nintendogs and Cats, Animal Crossing New Leaf, unsurprisingly, and lastly, Tomodachi Life. Animal Crossing has had its fair share of controversies, from the Red Tulip letter fiasco to people using New Horizons to protest, but for a brief moment in time, Tortimer was the face of one such controversy, in which a local news channel in the US accused Tortimer of potentially being a child predator.
Police have a warning for parents about a popular gaming system and a way it's being used to put your children at risk.
That's right, this is the game and you actually create your own character, house, and even town. And when connected to the internet, you can talk to people across the country. And kids have no say as to what some of these characters say to them. For example, this character could be the man in California police are warning about tonight that asked for images from Missouri children.
Now, we all know Tortimer as being the wise old mayor from previous games, and most importantly, an NPC, i.e. a non-playable character. But I guess those writing the quote-unquote news report were just looking for sensationalism, looking to scare people that knew nothing about the series and didn't actually do any research. Now, many people that knew anything about the series, and plenty of people that didn't, couldn't believe this news segment even happened, and many players rallied on the internet, turning this terrible reporting into various memes and jokes amongst the Animal Crossing community. When talking to Flick at the Roost, he may reveal that his net, a black net with metallic studs around the ring, is called Bugnir. So, now you know. During the Nintendo Direct, which announced the Welcome Amiibo update for New Leaf, they revealed that Harvey has 30 headbands and wears a different one each day.
Oh, I love this bandana. I have 30 of them myself. Wear a different one every day, would you believe it? Of course, nobody ever notices.
Del, the alligator, was designed to resemble a battleship, with his two-tone colour scheme, black squares resembling gun ports around his cheeks, and both his English and Japanese names seeming to be inspired by such, as his Japanese name is Yamato, named after the Yamato battleship built just before the Second World War, and his English name, Del, probably being an abbreviated version of Delaware, which has been the name of multiple ships in the US Navy. And just to drive the point home regarding his naval theme, the majority of his home interiors across the series have been designed to look like ship interiors, with his requests in Happy Home Designer and Paradise being centralised around his want to feel like a sailor. In New Leaf, Muffy and Diana, along with a couple of other villagers, have the skill of writing about pickles, which is just weird. I assume it has something to do with their job aspirations being dermatologists, and maybe pickles or pickle juice is good for the skin? I don't know. Another skill I find really weird is Marty's skill of hiding shoes, to which I'm well aware that it's a reference to Pom Pom Purin, the Sanrio character he's based on, but I like to imagine he has friends over to his home and then he goes full gremlin mode and steals their shoes for his weird collection. Sticking with New Leaf for a moment, as that was the first game in the series that gave each individual personality their own pitch in Animalese. Prior to this, the voices were limited to just male, female, and a deeper variant of the male voice for cranky villagers. The highest score Metacritic for an Animal Crossing game across the series is 91 out of 100, and was given to New Horizons. The lowest score was unsurprisingly given to Amiibo Festival on the Wii U, only scoring 46. The average score for the 8 mainline games across the series, that includes Pocket Camp, is just over 76, which is pretty respectable. I've mentioned Philly being Japan exclusive before in a previous trivia video, but she wasn't the only Japanese exclusive villager for the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf. This is Holden, a jock hamster villager that was made in collaboration with the Fueki company and bears a major resemblance to the company's mascot, Fueki-kun. His RV could only be invited to the campground during the timed event in Japan, and all his furniture seemed to feature the face of Fueki-kun. Holden himself has many references to glue, one of the products the company is known for. Among these are his catchphrase being glue stick. His birthday is June 11th, which is when the company celebrates Glue Day, as the numbers 6 and 11 can be rearranged to almost look like the word nori, Japanese word for glue, and it's implied that the RV's tyres are coated in glue to maximise the grip. For Fueki's end of the collaboration, they released a set of glue pots which feature the faces of KK Slider, Isabelle, and Digby, and to be honest, they're pretty cute in their own way. Lucky shares something in common with the Pokemon Chansey, as both of their Japanese names are Raki, the Japanese word for lucky. But I must admit, as much as I love the boy, I would trust Chansey's sense of luck over Lucky's. The full body in bandages doesn't really do much to inspire confidence. Ione, the squirrel, or Ione as Google assures me is the correct pronunciation, has a somewhat astral theme, but also has a few ties to Greco/Roman mythology as well. Regarding the star theming, the most obvious is her dark blue tail with white specks, almost resembling a constellation of stars. Her catchphrase is "I was born under a lucky star," and when shocked, she has a small, light-coloured 4-pointed star appear in each eye. Her names in a few different languages also allude to stars as well, as her Japanese name, Sepika, is a reference to Spica, the brightest star in the Virgo constellation, with Virgo also being her star sign, and her German name, Vega, named after the brightest star in the Lyra constellation. As for the mythological ties, her English name of Ione is actually ancient Greek for violet flower, but also a name of a nymph in Greek mythology, and her French name is Terra, potentially being named after the Roman goddess of Earth, the Roman equivalent of the ancient Greek goddess Gaia. SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the last places I'd think to look for an Animal Crossing reference, but in the episode Salty Sponge, a pair of froggy chairs make a brief cameo appearance. In Happy Home Designer, when talking to Blanca, she'll reveal that Jack is her trickster rival, and that they got into a long-standing prank war against each other. It's even got to the point where Blanca can't trust her home or anything in it, and so she needs you to make a new one. If speaking to Jack after making his home, he'll also bring up the prank war, but throws some shade by saying Blanca is a mere pretender to the throne. Animal Crossing as a series has sold an impressive amount, over 78 million copies according to Wikipedia, with New Horizons being the biggest contributor to this, selling over 45 million copies, and being the second best-selling Switch game of all time, only behind Mario Kart 8. The first generation games have sold a respectable 2.7 million copies, but I'd have to assume that the figure would be larger because as far as I can tell, it only includes the GameCube releases of Dobutsu no Mori Plus and E Plus in Japan, and Animal Crossing in the United States, and doesn't take into account the original Dobutsu no Mori on the N64 in Japan, the European or Australian releases of Animal Crossing, or Dongwu Sailing released on the iQue in China. Wild World, City Folk and New Leaf sold over 11 million, 3 million and 13 million copies respectively, and everybody's favourite Animal Crossing spin-off, Amiibo Festival, only shows figures of 90,000 units sold. Wikipedia does say that Amiibo Festival has lifetime sale figures of around 490,000 units worldwide, and whilst that does sound a tad more respectable, it does mean that it's the worst ever selling Animal Crossing game that was released outside of Japan. So this is more of a personal point as opposed to a fact, but it took me the longest time to learn Caesar's name. The giant A on his shirt doesn't help. His Japanese name is Alan, so I guess that makes sense, but it wouldn't stick in my mind because we obviously have a different gorilla called Al. The name Caesar could be a reference to the ape leader in the Planet of the Apes movie series, but having never seen any of those films, it's hard to retain. Let me know if there's any villagers whose name you struggle with, and help me feel better about my name problems. In New Horizons, the fake version of the academic painting, based on Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, has an obvious coffee stain on the front, but if placed down as an item and then spun around, you'll reveal a key taped to the back. This is likely a reference to Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, and that the Vitruvian Man is used as a plot device in the novel. The key itself may also be a reference to the keystone within the story, which gives clues as to where the Holy Grail can be found. According to their Pocket Camp description, Cleo, the snooty horse, is the CEO of 3 different companies, and when invited to the campground in New Leaf Welcome Amiibo, the RV description implies that she doesn't take work home with her, but takes it camping, so she can be productive anywhere and work on the go. Interestingly, she was the only horse villager not present in New Leaf until the Welcome Amiibo update dropped, and that's not including the Japanese exclusive character Philly, as she couldn't be invited to live in your town. In Animal Crossing Plaza, an Animal Crossing social app / spin-off that was available as a free download on the Wii U, they had monthly polls for players to vote in, starting in November 2013 until December 2014, asking questions like, who is the neighbour of the year, who would you want as a roommate, or who seems the most likely to win a marathon, things like that. But no matter what question they asked, Isabelle was always voted in first place, and by quite a considerable margin. Her biggest winning margin was over 10,000 votes in the very first poll. But then, the question was, who would make the best secretary? So, that was hardly a surprising outcome. Both Samson and Rocco's favourite saying, from New Leaf onwards, are modified quotes from former US presidents. Samson's "squeak softly and carry a big stick" is a pun on Theodore Roosevelt's quote, "speak softly and carry a big stick." Rocco's saying, being "the only thing to fear is fear itself, and wasps," is a modified quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt. And I think the addition of fearing wasps is more than reasonable. Those guys are fast and sting hard. In New Horizons, if collecting Nook Miles solely via the achievements and ignoring the daily Nook Stop visits or Nook Mile Plus tasks, as technically they are an infinite source of Nook Miles, by completing every achievement available, you earn a whopping 376,800 Nook Miles in total. Also, a random note, but Nook Miles are the equivalent of 6 bells each, as you can spend 500 Nook Miles to redeem a 3,000 bell ticket voucher at the Nook Stop. The Tulip Surprise Box is a furniture item in New Horizons that looks like a tulip, and when interacted with, the tulip opens to reveal its surprise, a small doll. But what you might not have noticed is that the dolls resemble the princesses from the Super Mario series. The yellow variant reveals a Princess Peach doll, the white reveals a Princess Daisy doll, and finally, the red version reveals a Princess Rosalina doll. Avery, the cranky eagle, has been lying to you. Well, okay, maybe not, but let me explain. His catchphrase is "scree-haw," which is onomatopoeia commonly associated with the cry of an eagle. Now, we all know the soundbite that they use in various media. That's the one. But did you know that that cry isn't from an eagle, but it's actually from a red-tailed hawk? What other secrets are you hiding, Avery? Now, this has definitely been mentioned before on my channel, but it seems like Goldie used to have a secret crush in Wild World, and you could only find out via her picture quote. The quote read, "I'm really into that lab on the cover of Nintendogs. He's pretty dreamy." Just another instance of Animal Crossing having the various other Nintendo gaming universes interwoven into its own. The quote on the back of her photo has been changed since, and is now the more familiar, "A little bit of happiness is better than a lot of anguish." Club LOL, the comedy club / music venue in New Leaf, seems to have had its name based around laughter or joking in various European languages, whereas the Japanese / Korean names both reference the fact that Dr. Shrunk teaches you emotions there. In English, it's LOL, obviously laughing out loud. In Spanish, it's Club Haha, which means exactly what it sounds like. In German, it's Club Kalauer, which I think means pun or corny joke. Seems like a perfect description of Shrunk's jokes, honestly. In French, it's Club MDR, standing for Mort de Rire, dying of laughter. However, in Japanese, it's Club 444, read as Shisho, which translates as teacher or mentor, and incidentally is Shrunk's Japanese name. And in Korean, it's Club 515, May 15th being when they celebrate Teacher's Day in South Korea, and is a reference to Shrunk's name, Shushong, meaning teacher or mentor. The English name does have a tie with the teaching aspect of the club, as the font chosen for LOL makes it look somewhat like 101. The number synonymous with basic knowledge of a subject, and makes it seem like the club is where you'll learn the basics of jokes / emotions. Comedy 101, if you will. Tom, the cranky cat villager, has a bit of boxing theme going on. His e-reader card explains that he used to be a world-class boxer in his younger days. His Happy Home Designer and Paradise requests centre around boxing or training for fights. And finally, his Pocket Camp description mentioning there are rumours that he was a former bantamweight junior world boxing champion, but also goes on to mention that no one knows that he still can't fall asleep unless he has his favourite cat toy. I've mentioned before about Pappy being a male villager but having the hair whirl which is typical of a female okapi, the species his design is based on. Well, as several people pointed out, he shares this trait with Julia the ostrich, as she is a female villager yet her plumage resembles a peacock, the male of the species. I can only assume this was done as males are generally more recognisable of the peafowl. Peahens, whilst beautiful birds in their own right, are a tad more plain looking. Also, the fact that peacocks have a large train they tend to fan out, and it fits better with the ostrich model and their tail feathers. Excluding the Sanrio crossover, there were 5 promotional amiibo cards released. Most might be familiar with the Goldie, Stitches and Rosie cards which came included in copies of Amiibo Festival on the Wii U, where the 3 are sporting hats and holding various tools. The other 2 were included in certain issues of Japanese magazines. The Isabelle, or Shizue card, was released with the September/October 2015 issue of Character Parfait magazine and shows Isabelle in her summer New Leaf outfit with a happy expression and a unique pose compared to the other Isabelle cards previously released. The final card is KK Slider, or Toka KK, which is included in the April to June 2016 issue of Pokipuri magazine. This card is somewhat unique, as it's one of the few instances of official artwork which shows off KK without him holding or playing his guitar, instead having it in its case and slung around his back. When you fully complete the fish or the bug section of your Critterpedia in New Horizons, you'll receive a letter gifting you the recipe for the golden fishing rod or golden net depending on which section you've completed, with the author of said letters being the Faraway Museum, which was a place mentioned in the original Animal Crossing/Dobutsu no Mori E+, and was the method of getting your fossils assessed, as Blathers was not qualified to do so. It's a neat little callback to the first generation games, but I'm happy the developers streamlined the process and allowed Blathers to assess the fossils there and then, even if he does kind of blather on a bit. In the original Dobutsu no Mori, there are 2 paintings featured that have not really returned in any other Animal Crossing game. These are the novel painting, based on
Composition with Red, Yellow and Blue by Pete Mondrian,
and the dreadful painting based on The Scream by Edvard Munch. Though there was never an official statement from Nintendo as to why these were removed from Animal Crossing onwards, it can be assumed that they didn't want to deal with the potential legal challenges, as both art pieces were still under copyright and would not enter the public domain until 2015. In Dobutsu no Mori Plus, the novel painting was replaced by the healing painting, Woman with a Parasol by Claude Monet, and the dreadful painting was replaced with Portrait of Irene Carène d'Anvers by Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Technically, they can still exist in Dobutsu no Mori Plus, but only via the data moving service, which allows players to transfer their save data from the N64's Dobutsu no Mori over to the GameCube's Dobutsu no Mori Plus. There are 4 villagers based off of mythical creatures, Drago being a dragon, Julian being a unicorn, Phoebe being a phoenix, and lastly Hans being a yeti. The King Tut mask has been available throughout the series since its introduction in Wild World, and when you put on the mask, it plays its own unique variation of the changing clothes jingle, sounding just a little tad more depressing. Wearing the mask also gives the player a chance to trip and fall over, similar to the bad luck mechanic throughout the series. According to Wikipedia, in Wild World, the likelihood of you tripping whilst wearing the King Tut mask is 1 in 378 chance for every step you took while running, which seems pretty low, but if you're like me and you like to run everywhere, that's a lot of re-rolls the game gets to potentially trip you over. Admittedly, I did look to see if the odds change in any of the subsequent games, and I couldn't find anything, so I would have to assume it's the same 1 in 378 chance. If anyone out there is better informed on this subject, please let me know in the comments. The Sanrio amiibo cards released in Japan in early November 2016, shortly after the Welcome Amiibo update dropped for New Leaf. In Europe, we had to wait until the end of that month. However, if you're from North America and wanted these cards, you had to wait a staggering 4.5 years, with them being released shortly after the 1.9 update for New Horizons in March 2021. This blows my mind, not to mention the horror show that many people had trying to get hold of them, as they were exclusively sold through Target stores, and they seemed to sell out instantly after going live. However, the site also suffered glitches, and some people thought they had reserved packs for a store pickup, only to be told they hadn't. And of course, scalpers buying up as much as they could, only to put them back on resale sites for stupidly inflated prices. Needless to say, the whole thing was chaotic and beyond messy. Jitters only has 5 furniture items in his home in New Horizons. These are a football goal, or soccer goal if you're from across the pond, a director's chair, a champion's pennant, and 2 balls, footballs to be exact. This is the least furniture items inside the home of any villager in the entire game. Now, I'm not really keen on Jitters, but he deserves better than that. Like, his previous home designs weren't pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but they had a little personality. This is just boring, and that's coming from someone who actively enjoys both playing and watching football. On a slightly sad note, in Happy Home Designer, Isabel and Digby claim to remember living part of their lives as puppies from a little cardboard box. The pessimistic side of me believes this implies the pair were abandoned. Isabel also remembers chewing on Digby's shoes when she was younger, so maybe the fact they were destructive was a reason for them being cast aside. But if this was the case, at least it had a happier ending, as in New Horizons during the daily broadcast, Isabel mentions having a video chat with her family and that her mum and dad are doing great. So someone must have taken them in and cared for them like they deserve. The size of your town, or island in the case of New Horizons, vary throughout the series. In the first generation games, the town was 30 acres, so 6 by 5. In Wild World, the town shrinks to its smallest in the series, only being 16 acres. It makes sense for such a reduction considering the hardware and limitations of the DS. Side note, Wild World also has the least amount of villagers per game, with 150 available, but I digress. Come City Folk and the town expands to 25 acres. New Leaf sees a slight reduction to 20 acres, but you do have the high street in that game, saving you space as the museum and the majority of the shops are located in their own little area. You also have the ability to choose where the player home goes, which was a first for the series. And finally, New Horizons has the largest area per game, so far at least, with 42 acres. But it only seems fair. You do have an entire island to design after all, and you're not just limited to a coastal town. Blathers, Mayel and O'Hare all feature on the box art for the Chinese released Dongwu Seilin for the iQ, despite none of them actually appearing in the game. This is because the 3 characters made their debut in the GameCube released Dobutsu no Mori Plus. However, Dongwu Seilin is essentially a Chinese port of the original Dobutsu no Mori, which was released exclusively in Japan for the N64, so naturally missed out on any new characters or features added to the series after the first game. This is in spite of the fact that, astonishingly, the iQ version released way after all the iterations of the first generation games, and was even later than the majority of regional releases of Wild World for the DS across the globe. However, I am willing to give the iQ dev team some forgiveness here, as the port was potentially handled by just one person. That's a lot of work for a team of 1. Animal Crossing is the final course in the Crossing Cup in Mario Kart 8, and, as you would expect, is chock full of references to Animal Crossing. Villagers and special characters making appearances, coins being replaced with bells, things like that, and it's all pretty cool. But they've even thrown in a few musical Easter eggs within the course as well. KK Cider makes an appearance and is located in different predetermined spots depending on the season within the race, but if you drive close enough to him, you can hear him perform a different song each season. Spring is Bubblegum KK, Summer is Go KK Rider, Autumn is KK Bossa, and Winter is Stale Cupcakes. But that's not all. If you drive by Tom Nook / the Nook's Cranny and have a keen ear, you can hear a rendition of the Nook's Cranny theme. Mr. Rossetti also appears almost in the role of a Monty Mole, causing an obstacle on the course, except for the winter season. And if you drive close enough without being hit by him, you might just hear his theme playing amongst the rest of the soundtrack, and all the other constant chaos and noise that is a Mario Kart race. Also, random note, in several other courses within the game, where you have Yoshi characters in the audience, you may come across one that hums Totaka's song. The piece was written by Kazumi Totaka, a video game composer and sound director for all the mainline Animal Crossing games. He has a tendency to hide this piece in a lot of the games he's worked on, and those Animal Crossing fans with a keen ear may recognise the piece as KK's song. KK Cider is actually based off of Totaka, as his Japanese name is Tota KK, obviously derived from Totaka K, and his birthday of August 23rd also matches the real life birthday of Mr. Totaka. Before the release of Animal Crossing in North America, a competition called Animal Crossing Pioneers was announced, in which 125 teams of 2 would be chosen to receive a promotional copy of the game a month before the official release date, alongside a memory card and a promotional calendar. After writing why they should be chosen in 50 words or less, winners received their copies of the game, and it was byte for byte identical to the official release version, which only makes sense, as the Pioneers were expected to hype up the game online. You obviously wouldn't want them hyping up features that don't appear in the actual game. The only thing that was different about their pre-release copies is that the disc had for promotion use only, not for resale, printed on the disc. The fact these versions of the game are so limited has made them highly sought after by Animal Crossing collectors, and it has been known for copies to sell for thousands of US dollars. Have you ever wondered why the villager Winnie has a star on her head? Well, for the non-horse people out there, myself included, this probably refers to the type of facial marking that a horse can have between or just above the eyes, which is known as a star. I guess the designers took it very literally and made it an actual star shape. However, her Japanese name is Makaba Star, derived from the words Makaba, meaning farm or ranch, and the English word star. So maybe the star on her head is like a badge, showing how she's the star of the ranch? That would certainly explain her being given the peppy personality. Now, this next fact is more based on my Animal Crossing videos, but I thought it was interesting, so I thought it's worthy of being included. But I've gone through every single villager hunt I've uploaded onto my channel, up to recording the audio of this trivia video, to see which of the 35 species comes up the most. So, over the course of 32 villager hunt videos, 16 plus hours of footage, and well over 1700 Nook Miles tickets used, the most commonly found species was kangaroo. Here's a full set of the results if you're interested, and maybe let me know how your favourite species did in the comments below. Each personality have their own general sleep routine, and the amount of time they get for catching these has mostly been cut between New Leaf and New Horizons, with only the normals retaining any consistency between the two games, getting 6 hours between 12 AM and 6 AM. The big sister personality has lost 1.5 hours, going from 8 hours to 6.5. Cranky's only lost half an hour, from 6 to 5.5. Both Jock and Lazy lost an hour each, going from 7 to 6 and 10 to 9 hours respectively. Peppy's took the biggest hit to their beauty sleep, going from 8 hours to 5.5. That's not a huge time to recharge for all the singing and dancing they do in prep for becoming world famous. And finally, both Smug and Snooty losing 1.5 hours, going from 6.5 to 5 and 7.5 to 6 respectively, with the former getting the least amount of sleep out of all the personalities. It's no wonder they're always getting the meaning of foreign languages wrong. They must just be in a dazed state permanently. So that concludes my third instalment of random facts and trivia about Animal Crossing. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found out something you didn't know previously. If you did enjoy, please hit like and consider subscribing if you haven't done already, and if you like this kind of content, then be sure to let me know in the comments below. But if gameplay is more your style, I've just started a brand new island on Animal Crossing New Horizons, so be sure to check out the channel. But I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that watched this. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video, and until the next time, have a good one. Cheers!